Hello and good morning, everybody. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz. I'm reporting for Livestream.travel and eTurbo News in Honolulu, Hawaii. And like we did all month, so celebrating the launch of World Tourism Network. World Tourism Network was initiated out of the rebuilding.travel discussion. We started way back when Corona became a topic in March during ITB trade show in Berlin. Unfortunately, ITB trade show didn't happen, but we happened. And we had an entire month of launch events, some really, really good events. There's still more coming up between now and the end of the month. You can actually find the archive or link to the archive and also links to how you sign up for future events if you simply go to wtn.travel and click on the expo link, or you click on the launch event links or on the blue banner. It gets you to wtn.travel/expo. And when you sign up, you can actually be live with us. We now have a small audience here of live participants. So if you wanted to be one of these audience, what would allow you to also ask questions very easily, just go to wtn.travel and you can sign up. Also, if you're not yet a member of World Tourism Network, please sign up. We have both complimentary and paid memberships, and we'd love to have you on board. Currently, we have members in 124 countries and a little bit more than 1,000 members worldwide. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce my partner and co-founder, Peter Tarlo, Dr. Peter Tarlo. He's joining us from Texas, and he will introduce Apollonia from Dark Sky, Portugal, who will be doing today's presentations. And after the presentation, of course, we always have an opportunity for you to ask questions or add comments to it. So we keep it interactive. Good morning, Peter. How are you? You have to unmute yourself, though.
There you go. I'm sorry. I just finished 3 hours talking to all these tourism secretaries of in Mexico, so all 32 states. And now I get to switch from Mexico to one of my favorite countries, Portugal. My first PhD was in Portuguese Jewish history. And Portugal has really done a fantastic job of making itself one of the great new tourism destinations. It's an old destination, but it's a new destination. The city of Porto has been picked as Europe's most charming city. And so again, I'm a big fan of Portugal. I go to Portugal once or twice a year. And I'm really looking forward to this. I don't want to take too much of Apollonia's time away because she's the center of attention. But I want to just say to her, seja bem-vinda, welcome. And we're really happy to have you and to be part of the World Tourism Network. So I'm going to give you it's your floor. You go where you'd like.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon or good morning, depends on where you are. For us, it's 6 o'clock, so we are in the end of the day here in Europe and in Portugal. And what I wanted first to thank to be part of this network. I believe that all together we could bring more strongness to our tourism that is suffering a lot. And in our case, we are in one of the destinations that are less, I mean, not less affected, but compared to the mass tourism, we are a non-massified tourism. So when people wanted to start to travel, they come to our territories instead of others that are more massified. So we were lucky during summer, but the tourism is suffering a lot, and we are part of a system. So doesn't mean that if we are working well and receiving tourism, we are part of a system, especially in our region, then in our country, then in Europe, and then in the world. So if the tourism is suffering, we are also suffering a lot. So I decided to make a presentation so it will be easier for all of you to understand what means dark sky in Portugal, what we are doing, when we started, and above all, what we are. So I hope I can make the presentation.
I'm going to give you the screen share.
Okay, thank you.
To screen it now. To share it now. Sorry.
Sorry?
You can share your screen now. There we go.
Okay, it's okay now?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. So here we say it's Dark Sky, it's our brand, and we have certification. But what I wanted to say is, for us, what means a dark sky destination? Because there are a little bit of information regarding what means a dark sky and destination. And for us, it's not just, I know that in United States, there is a certification called Dark Sky, but it's a certification. We are a brand, it's a little bit different, so we can be certified from different types of certifications while this is our name, but above all is a concept. So we work hard to promote our brand and to turn it a strong brand. So we work a destination or destinations of astrotourism. I know that in United States, in Chile, in La Palma, in Spain, and so on, there are many places with scientific telescopes. So they are very important for science. They are making, many people is going there to see the infrastructure and so on. But the difference is that you cannot go to one of these from using your eyes. You cannot see Neptune. You cannot see the deep objects. You can only see pictures that these objects can take it. You can see how this work during the day, but no one is going there to use the eyes to look it through the telescope, because there are different types of telescopes. So we are different in the way that we work astrotourism. So we wanted to make science. We wanted to divulgate, disseminate, and make outreach of science in a different way, like an experience, but also giving people other part, the tourism part. So you can, from Lisbon, you can be in a dark place, in our dark place, in 1 hour and a half, have restaurants, accommodations, the observatory, all together, it's closed. So in half an hour, in 45 minutes, you have different types of offer during the day and during the night. So it's what make a difference between a destination specific prepared or organized for scientific tourism and a destination of astrotourism. We not only think in our resource, we think our destinations as a system. So it's why we work in an integrated, sustainable way. So under the dark sky, the protected night sky, we develop and help the development of these regions, not just of course, our aim, that is to protect the night sky. I wish also to say that we try hard and work hard with the communities, because the difference between the north, the south, and the center of Portugal, or from different countries, their identity. So we don't want to make a modern type of tourism. We want to combine science with the identity of that region. So we don't want to change the identity of that region and bring it back and make it more attractive. And also we deal a lot with sensorial tourism. What this means that we work hard for the experience of the tourist. It's not a lesson. It's not we are giving science. We are involving people in the science, in what is astrotourism, what is the universe, and try to make it very, very attractive. We help because we are a non-profit organization. Apart our observatory, that is the main infrastructure for giving the experience, we also support our network of partners to create specific and complementary night activities. For example, we have in Alqueva, we have a big lake. Why not to do canoeing at night? Why not to doing blind wine tasting? Because we are a region for wine. Why not to do night walking, using the megalithic objects and the heritage? The megalithic heritage, and especially the cromlechs, were the first telescopes. Why not to make it more knowledge about this, and to make night walks, passing these objects and then making observations not only in the observatory but also in another places. And of course, we have, as I said, a network of partners, because our objective, our mission is to protect the night sky, but also to develop the regions where we are working. And we work off a code of ethics, of course. Couldn't be in a different way. So to say a little bit more, our dark sky mission is to show people, because we are working in areas that are very depopulated, people are aged, and still link light to development. So what we are trying to say, that it's possible to have a night sky, protected night sky with quality enough to make it as a resource, as a tourism resource, and to create a product, but at the same time to develop the region. It's perfectly compatible. Depends how the way you do it and how the way you understand the light pollution in your territory. And we always say that the night sky is a world humankind heritage. You have to keep it. You know that most of people, and UNWTO said that in two-thirds of the population lives in cities that are very affected by light pollution, and most of them never saw the Milky Way. So can you imagine so many people that never saw the Milky Way? They never understand that that is possible to see. So in our and I wanted to say that this is our main audience, but I wish also to say where we are. This is Portugal. You see our rectangle, it's our country, and we are located in that white part. So you see we have 10 municipalities in Portugal and 13 in Spain. We are the first starlight tourism destination. So our certification is as a tourism destination, starlight tourism destination, and Spain joined us. So we started, we were also the first cross-border. It's a hard work to work in as a cross-border, but it's what we do. We started in 2007, so it was, we had many years to develop and to reach the what we are now. And in 2018 we started to have 2018, sorry, we started to have a request from other regions from Portugal to create the same, or to help to develop the same concept, not in the same way we are developing in the south, because everything has to be adapted to the region we are working. Remember that we value a lot the identity of each region, not just the country, but each region has a different dynamic way of working and the identity. So we started to work in the center of Portugal with the Dark Sky Aldeias do Xisto, and in the north is in a regional natural park in Val do Tua. It's why we call Dark Sky Portugal, because we are 13,000 square kilometers of territory that are in this moment with the mission to protect the night sky and to use it as a resource. So you can see here, it's around 4,000 square kilometers in the center of Portugal, and a small area around 1,600 square kilometers in Portugal. It's more than 10% of our whole territory, inland territory, continental territory. So to give you an idea, and through the image of Miguel Claro, our official astrophotographer, and it's the way we communicate and we show to people that two-thirds of people that never saw Milky Way, that we have this. This is a picture from our observatory, so you can be there, putting your eye in the ocular. I don't know if in English you say that, but you can put your eye there and look to the sky and see the objects that are in the Milky Way, as you can see there. So this is a type of activity we do. This is our observatory. We have two different observatories, one for visual, another for astrophotography. And you can see the building is not a modern building, but an old primary school that was used for that village to give knowledge to learning, to the learning of that people. And now they have a different kind of learning installed in that building. So it's a primary school that was refurbished to receive this modern facility. So it's a combination of old and new. We do also workshops of astrophotography. Most people wish to bring pictures, to take pictures, to keep it for themselves or for others, or to go to do outreach. But you need a great technique to do it. It's not like during the day, even if during the day is also you need technique, but during the night you need not only to know how to shoot at night, but what you are shooting, because astrophotography doesn't mean you are taking pictures at night. You are taking pictures with a sense. The Milky Way, with the planet, with the conjunction, with the solar, with the sun. It could be also during the day with the sun, with the moon, with the big moon, and so on. Depends. You have to do astrophotography means that you are taking a picture with some object. Like this, for example, this is a nebula. This is astrophotography of deep space. This is an activity related with Perseids, meteor shower, during COVID. So you can see people are located in every place, and we were looking at the naked eye what means meteor shower, and this is a type of activity that is developed in our territory, and it is dark enough just to see there, seated, look at to the above, to the universe. For example, we do night bird watching. So it's also an activity we do. We have birds that came out of night, and with the right and the proper equipment, we can see it. This is at twilight. This image is taken at twilight. I also wanted to say that we value the work, international work. It's why we are partner of the World Tourism Network, and also we work in the affiliate. We are also affiliate member of United Nations, but also the part of sustainability. It's why we are One Planet Travel with Care partner organization, and we are working for sustainability and to think how we can, with our mission, not only tackle the issue of light pollution, that is a big issue, but also combining the other questions of pollution and circularity and so on. I wish also to say that we have international partnerships. We work with the United States Embassy here in Portugal. They bring some scientists. Usually they were bringing scientists to the more populated areas, to the cities, and to Açores, because there is a base there. But with our work and the recognition of what we are doing in the area that is close to the border of Spain, so in the opposite of the more populated areas, and we were able to bring, for example, an astronaut, a person responsible for a mission in Jupiter, and the first woman responsible for a mission, Alice Bowman. She works with the New Horizons, and it's the mission to Pluto. So you can see that we also tackle the area, the scientific area, bringing knowledge, but always in the way that is inspirational. So to bring people that can talk about science, but talk for everyone. And it's why we are doing these partnerships. I wish to say that 2020, in opposite to the pandemic situation and COVID, we got lots of recognition. I have to say international recognition, because this product, this resource, this way of working were firstly recognized outside, then at internal level. And we have, even from IDA, International Dark Sky Association, we have a recognition. We have one work in China, European Commission, because we work with sustainable indicators, the BIS, so from Houston, so I mean also from United States organizations, from corporate organizations like Corporate Travel Awards, as Europe's destination. Also, in terms of the AC key, means that we are being recognized from not only the tourism side, but also the business side. So we have also from AC Key country award for our work in astrotourism, because we are pioneers in Portugal in developing astrotourism. We are part of the top 100 of sustainable global destinations. We are leadership in, we received a leadership in award for sustainability. We were being awarded also as a Portugal Game Changer of the Year, again in ASICI awards, but at global way. Just to say that in the World Travel Awards, that for many people is considered the Oscar of tourism, we got different awards, the Responsible Tourism award, as a leading tourism project, and in the grand final, so where you see the winners of all the continents, we reached the world's lead tourism development project, because our mission, because what we do in terms of protecting the night sky, and how we do the integrated sustainable development in our regions. And to finish the awards, we had also one that is given today, this year, but for the next year as the recognition for the next year. And it is Learning Experience of the Year for Portugal, for the association, Dark Sky Association, my association. Why? Because we are changing the way science is being reaching people. So we are trying to to tackle more people, a wider audience through the sensorial tourism, through the sensorial experience, and bringing science more close to a wider public. I wanted also to finish my presentation, giving you the idea what you can find when you are in our destination. And I'm talking in this case mostly about Dark Sky Alqueva, because it's the one we started in 2007, is the one more developed. You can see here, for example, all the arm of the Milky Way. So when you are under this, you can imagine, you can feel different things. So during COVID, what we understood, it's people wanted to be in nature, but wanted to make tourism with more sense, with more responsibility, but also with a different significance for themselves. And to be in the region, in a destination that can look above and see how can see the sea of stars that you can have, it's something that only being with these people that see the Milky Way for the first time and see this amount of stars, millions of stars that we can show, because we have less light pollution than other places. So we are working for zero light pollution. So it's unbelievable. And it's why most people choose our destination when it started to open in June. They started to come really searching the dark sky with no further communication, because they wanted to stay under the stars. In Portuguese, I could say this with more attractiveness. Sorry, English is not my language, and so I'm not so fluent that I can do it and explain this feeling that our customers have in such a most attractive way. You can see here, this is a star trail. Miguel do these star trails so you can see that the Earth is round, because the stars are moving in a round way, but also to show people, for example, through this image, that stars have different colors. The blue ones are more hot, and the yellow ones and red ones are the coldest ones. So you can see this profusion of colors, because the sky is very contrasted. So it means that we have a dark sky, and you can take it most of this from a single shot, and take the camera there, taking single frames of 15 seconds, 20 seconds. And in the end, you have this with no treatment. It's not Photoshop, it's real because we have a really dark sky. You see another shot of our image. So I wanted to thank you for listening to me straight on. My name is Apollonia Rodrigues, as Euron said. And all the astrophotography you saw here is from Miguel Claro. And we are from the Dark Sky Association and developed this concept and brand in Portugal, in the international level, but by now in Portugal. So I don't know if you wanted to ask questions that you can talk, because I think now we could be more interactive if you wanted to know more about what we do during the pandemic situation.
No, this is really a wonderful, very, very interesting presentation. Thank you so much. And reminds me, we should really have that here in Hawaii because we got beautiful sky too in some parts of the island. It is, it would be ideal, you know, to partner with you guys in Portugal and do this. It's a really great, great initiative, I think. And yes, and we do open it for question. And I know Punit Trika from India was asking how you can promote this in the Indian market. And he leaves his contact information. And that's really what we all do. We're networking. So you find Apolonia's contact information on, if you go to Portugal, and she's listed as a member, and you can easily find it, and we will archive these type of events also, so you can always listen and watch it. And I would encourage you, Apollonia, this is something very different we haven't done. Maybe you wanted to open a discussion group for other members to join in on the WTN network. Just let me know. We'd be happy to add this as an initiative. And yes, and we are open for questions. So
this really adds another aspect of all of our work, because we mainly have looked at land tourism. Then 2 days ago, we talked about ocean tourism, the sea, and now we've added the sky. So we now have pretty much the whole universe of the land, the sky, and the sea. The heavens, living in Texas, where we claim the stars are bright deep at night, which is a Texas saying. We have many hundreds of miles where you can go and not see another human being. And so we have very, very bright and dark skies, especially when there's, like today, there's no clouds in the sky. So yeah, it's fascinating. It's an aspect of Portugal that I did not know about. And next time I'm in Portugal, we're going to have to try to get to find you.
Yes. You know that you tackled an interesting thing that when I said that we have the certification that is Starlight Tourism Destination, we choose that in the beginning for one reason. Because when you are Starlight Tourism Destination means that you have also to tackle a criteria that is 50% of the nights have to be cloudless.
Yes.
Because if you have the resource, if you have the product, you have to be able to give it to the tourist. Yes. So how you can have a great work to protect the night sky. You can have few light pollution or almost zero light pollution, but if you are always full of clouds, you cannot show the sky. Yes. So we choose this because this can show to our customers that we can have a high percentage of possibility to give this product. In our case, in Alentejo, around the Great Lake of Alqueva, we have a medium of 286 nights without clouds. Wow. We did a study in 10 years, so during 10 years to do that. In the other, for example, in the other dark skies, Aldeias do Xisto and Val do Tua, the percentage is 50%. Is close 52%, 53%, because they are in highlands, so it's not us. And we are in a region that is cold, that in future can be a desert. So you can see that's it's why we have so nights with the possibility to give this product. So we are losing population, we have less water than the others, but we found a way of taking these negative things in a positive thing.
Yes.
And work on it. So it's a sustainable tourism. It's not for mass tourism because we have, as I said, problems of water, the availability of water. So we cannot just, we have a great lake, of course, but if we started to make huge tourism projects and use the water, in the future we will not have it. So we have to think in 20, 50 and more years. So you cannot just think, for 4 years I have, 10 years I have, so I can do it whatever I want. So we have to think on it. And you said in the clear day as it is, yes, we need clear day to, or clear nights to promote our dark sky product.
So how do you do it if it's for some reason it's not a clear day and people book this tour and you're doing something different? You're just going to get drunk and have a party, or what are you going to do?
That could be an option, yes, because we have a great gin made from one of our partners. We have great wine from our partners. But yes, we have an option, a possibility to do another kind of activities. For example, they can do a night walk without the stargazing. They can do night canoeing, not without stargazing, but we have also an option in our observatory that we do in room presentation or from astrophotography, that you can see these beautiful images, or we have simulation of the sky that is above us. Of course, most of people prefer to rebook or come in another way, but people coming from outside usually do this in room. But fortunately, there are few times that we have to use that. And we work we work all year round, so you don't close during winter. We do also night activities. For example, today is raining, but 2 days ago we had an astrophotography workshop. So during all day was raining, and since 5 o'clock started to clean, and it was a brilliant night, a fantastic night. So this is the type of region we have, fortunately.
When you say night, is it all night, or is it how late you guys go, or how early?
I mean, for example, in winter, we can start our sessions at 7 p.m. And end at 10, 11, but we can do until the twilight in the morning. Means that we can do activities until 4, 5, depends when it started to have light. Because when you see night, sometimes you see the twilight, not the astronomical twilight. The astronomical twilight is something like 40 minutes, if I'm not wrong, after the sunset. Because when you have sunset, it's dark, but it's not completely dark for us, in our case. So we need the crepuscular astronomical twilight for us. But it means that you are not seeing yet that is day or appearing to be day, but for us, it's like half an hour, 40 minutes before the sunrise that we cannot do any more activities. But yes, we can do it. And in summer, for example, usually we start at 10 of past 10 because the astronomical twilight is really late. And usually we close our observatory at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, depends on the activity. So you can imagine for tourism, sometimes we talk like our students and people who study tourism don't like to work out of, I mean, in restaurants and hotels, they are used. But after or out of that, it is really complicated. When I started in 2007, no one was working the night in this way. You can have bars, discos, but it's a different type of tourism. It's like a traditional tourism already, but not so much in our area, but in Lisbon and in the most massive tourism areas. But when I started to work and the night for this type of activities, people were a little bit quarreling. What's strange? But we will use the night. We do night walkings. this is a product. Someone will come here to see this, to see the stars, or to enjoy our night. Yes, lots of people. It's really a demand, a growing product, and we see with before 2019 really huge increase, but in 2020, in the parts that you were not so restrictive in terms of traveling, a search, a request of our activities really in a high demand.
Yeah, and specifically now with COVID, and once the tourism industry reopens, it's definitely something where you can keep your social distancing because you're out in the open, right?
Yes, yes. Our observatory is not like you see usually. It is not a cupola. I'm sorry, a scope dome. Maybe you understand what means.
Oh,
So
dome.
it's not round,
Yes.
and it's a rule of top. Means that it's a rule, a roof that goes down. So and you keep all the area open. You know, because when you have in the scope dome, you have just one part that you can see where you have the telescopes, and the rest is covered. We have all open. So even when you are doing the observation with telescopes, that is one part of our sessions, is not only what we do. You are in open air, and when we are doing, for example, we do an activity with around the chrome life of our members. As I said, the stones, the old ancient stones, it's completely open air, and you can be far away with 3 meters from each other. So better than that, you
You
cannot.
can't do. That's as good as you can do.
Yes.
Yes. That's,
We got you two clients already who wanted to know about you, and it's very easy. We're going to have your profile up, and
yes.
also with,
Okay, thank you very much.
I really think this is an example of when so many people around the world say, we have nothing to offer, or why would anybody want to come here? This is a perfect example of creativity, of thinking out of the box. Actually, she's thinking out of the world. And that it's really should symbolize to people, inspire others to think, what do I have and how can I turn what I have into something that's positive? So most people are very much afraid of desertification. She's turned something becoming a desert into something positive. And I think you're a real symbol for people of the use of out of the box thinking and creativity. So I want to congratulate you.
Oh, thank you very much. It's an honor to receive that words from all of you and from you, because it was hard. I have to say that you need a little bit, a huge truck of resilience, of obstinity, and knowing that you are going the right way, because most of people will say it is stupid. Who won't come here to see the stars? This is not a product. You are doing what you are wasting your time, and I knew it because my part of my work is to think over the future tendencies in tourism. It's what I like to do as a personal hobby, as I say. So I search the social networks, the news, to see how people and their comments, the daily things, to see what is missing in these people, what is missing in their lives, what could change or could be useful for a future product. Because we are not a public organization, we don't have money to develop this. We need to be very creative and thinking out of the box before anyone think on it, because we need time to develop it. It's not a question someone say, I have an idea, take it 1 million of euros and develop it. That is easy. In this case, I can say that for me it's easy because we work without any support. So we develop it by ourselves, this product. And only 2 years ago, we started to have a support from the National Tourism Organization with 2 applications. But nevertheless, we have to find a way, the money to cover the part is not funded, to go further, because we are creating a dark sky patrol. So to make sensibilization and to normal people, for people that are with their children, that they wanted to do something, they have to have a meaning of their time, the time they have free. And we created a dark sky patrol with dark sky guardians, so they can do activities together to protect the night sky, so to spread better our world. Because it's not a question of just a product. We are not just searching the profit or bringing tourists to us. The better it will be the performance of light pollution in our country, better our destination will be. So we depend on the best performance and the best sensibilization of everyone. So it's the way we do. So, but most of this work is back office. I can be month working, during 1 year working, to see after 1 year or two what I did. So this is really, you need to be sometimes working and thinking that you know the way and no one understands you, but you know what you are doing. So it's just to say that thank you for your words, because sometimes the nightmares and the resistance are being paid by seeing people like you and all of you listening me and understanding that we are doing something good, something that is interesting and important and can make a change in the way we think. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And have you ever thought about franchising such an idea?
You know something, I work with communities, and I work in tourism since '98. And all my development and growing in tourism, because my career, my area of study is not scientific, is not astronomy or something. Many people think about it. No, I'm manager and planner in tourism. So this is my basis of study. And it's what I like to do, and can be this product or another, but I have to like, and I have to understand, and I have to be to recognize all the aspects of the products I work, and this is a fantastic, the best product I have worked. But we could franchise the concept, the way we see astrotourism, but to be successful, we need to know very well how the dynamics of that region is. How can I say?
Yeah.
I don't work in.
If you don't have a good regional plan, you'll end up destroying the product.
Yes, yes. And you need to know the dynamics. And I'm not talking about tourism only. I'm talking about the tourism sector, but also the public sector and the community sector. Because when you are fighting light pollution, or when you need a type of tourism that you have to count also in the less light pollution from private owners, you need to be accepted. So means that you need to understand and to work with these people before you just input an area, a product.
Yes,
but
you must go very slowly. Yes. And really understand, because one error will destroy the entire concept.
Yes, you know that in the beginning we said that we have monuments that are light on. I hope you understand what means. It is correct. Light on all the night, but
that are lit all for the entire night.
Yeah, the entire night. And as you can imagine, we are in a rural territory. Sometimes people go, I'm not talking about residents, because they go earlier to bed, but even the tourists, the ones that are walking during the night, is to see the dark sky, because everything is closed, is to see the monuments at night, to walk at night, to feel the space, to feel the universe, not to see a monument full of light. So I asked them to turn off the light after 11 in the summer, and 9, for example, in the winter. So they started to do this, but they did it in a bad way. They just did it without any sensibilization to the communities. And in one village, one lady fall down, and in the newspaper said that it was because of the light that was used for lighting.
Lighting,
Sorry,
lighting, illumination.
illumination. The church, and the light of the church is not used for you to see the way, you know. So but when you don't do it in the right way, you can mess up. And we had 3-4 months back in our work because of this, because I asked them to do it in a proper way, sensibilizing the communities, because they are villages with 50 60 people, so it's easy to join all together and talk and explain. And no, they did it because they needed to just they saw an opportunity to spend less money, and they just did it. So we have to be careful with what we do. But the concept, yes, it is possible to be adapted to other regions. The way of implementing the concept needs a little bit of time with the communities, with the public authorities at local, regional, and national level. So it's you know, it's the way. I am a planner, but not a planner that think that when we establish a plan in 2000 and 2020, we have to stick it until 2013, until 2014. We have to change and to adapt, because every planning is usually linked to a living system, a region, a destination, whatever. And everything changed now. Everything changed so quickly, so we have to always to be adapted. So you need to have you need to have also in the place people with a long-term vision and capacity to develop the things, thinking in short, medium, and long term.
Right. And of course, I mean, there are probably other concepts I can see right where I live on the big island. We have Mauna Kea, what is more than 4,500 meters high, and you have the observatories up there. So you never have to worry about the clouds because you're above the clouds. And there might be other destinations. I see Pune from India. I can think of probably about the northern part of India could be an ideal test ground, don't you? What do you think, Punet?
Yes, I think so.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. How are you? Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Well, North India, actually, we have a serious issue about the pollution. I'm sorry to say that, because during this period, which is ongoing period of November and December, uh, people very near to my city, which is the capital, they actually burn their crops for the new crops. So during the entire winter, we have a lot of problems for the people who are based in Delhi and nearby, up to 600 kilometers in the diameters. So the north part may not be that good, but I think we can do something towards the West India, where we have longer summer period and less of winters. That could be one place, because that is a destination who actually are very encouraging to the new projects like Ms. Rodriguez is referring to. But in North, we have this particular problem of acute summers and acute winters and rainfalls and all. Right. So if I have to identify a region in India where we have a longer summer and less of rains and winters, then West India would be a right option. That's what I can think at the moment.
No, I was just wondering, and thanks for your contribution. Also, Enrique Zaya came in. He actually, he's from Venezuela, from what I see on the country code. I don't know if you want to add anything to it. Okay, maybe he doesn't have a microphone. I don't see his picture. Let me also ask, we call her Snow White. She's joining us, and she has joined almost now every session ever since we had a session on the Balkan. She's from Serbia, and she agreed to run our educational interest group. Welcome again, Snow White.
Thank you. Good evening. Good evening. It is a very nice night here in Belgrade, in Serbia, so we can go for the dark sky tonight, because it's really wonderful. This idea is excellent idea, and as Peter said, this is something which is new, but it is old because people were always looking at the stars, always from the very beginning of this humanity. And education is very important because Apollonia, you are educated people about the stars, about the space, about a clear sky, about sustainability, about ecotourism, about everything. And I think that it is a great job. So I am very glad to be a part of a panel. And I was listening very carefully as it is really very important that you show that although this year is very, very difficult for all of us for tourism, you show that you didn't stop. Actually, you are working all the time. You got the prices, and I think that it is very good. I saw the questions from all of us who are attending this panel, and everybody are asking you how they can promote this kind of tourism. I think that you have a very great success. Thank you very much.
No, and I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And just think with, eventually we'll have space tourism and you'll be able to look at the Earth from the moon.
I hope so. I would like to do it, but that is a very, how we say, expensive.
It won't be cheap. It will not be.
No, I think we will not have money to go there, but I can imagine Miguel Claro is a guy, fortunately we have him in our team, and he embraced this part of astrophotography and the sky and the universe, and he's a very good communicator, and it's his dream one day to go or to the moon or to the space station and be able to take pictures from there, and so I can imagine how great could be. But space tourism is not for all. It's for people very rich, and I don't know if we will one day we will be able to do it, or even to do you know that there is, when sometimes there are solar eclipse, there is a plane that I think
Takes you up.
Yes, and you can go there, but it's just for also for a few people. It's very expensive. When I saw the prices one day, and I thought, okay, this is not for us, because with the hard
Just
work.
remember, when I was a little boy, going to Europe was only for the very rich.
I know.
And now the world has changed. And so at first it will be expensive to go to the moon, and then it'll be just, well, I'm just going to the moon. I can't really afford to go to Pluto, but I'll just go to the moon. So
I hope I will have health to do that, because I'm not getting younger, so I hope it will be in time.
None of us are. None of us are. But what you're starting is for wonderful. I'm going to have to say goodbye to people. I have to go to another meeting. So I want to thank you. Jürgen, this is going to have to be my saying goodbye to people at the moment. So please don't think I'm not interested. I just will be late. So I wish everybody really wonderful holidays, and let's pray that 2021 is a better year than 2020.
Oh, I hope so. Thank you very much, and adeus. Até breve.
Adiós. Foi grande prazer para mim.
Para mim também. Muito obrigado. Até breve.
And
Sorry to be speaking in Portuguese, but he knows Portuguese, so I couldn't say goodbye without giving some words in Portuguese.
That's good.
I think Ms. Roddick, you should discuss your plan with the owner of Tesla company, because he had last 4 projects got was not successful. Recently we have seen the owner of the Tesla Motors. He had launched one space capsule, but it got came back after 20 minutes. You can give a very good project to him. Probably he has money and he can take you to moon also. So he could be a right finance. You could be a right financer for you, and you can get a branding from the the Fortune 500 people from that list.
I hope
so that can be you should take this venture to him. At least he gets a success story, at least from your project. because his 4 projects are already failed, you know, so fifth can be a lucky one for him.
We are successful. We can help you. We can help each other.
I tell you, I'd rather come and visit you in Portugal, so I pass on the moon right now. No, not for me. So that sounds a lot safer. But yeah, I don't know if there's any more question. Otherwise, we are right at time, and I think this was a really interesting session, interesting idea. And as I said, if you wanted to start a discussion group in regards to night, dark sky, or we'd be happy to entertain this thought and add it. But I wanted to thank you, and I wanted to thank everyone also for attending live. And we had quite a good participation, I see, also online on eTurbo News. So if you missed most of this, you can just watch out. We're going to repeat these sessions over the next few weeks, and you will see it also archived probably in the next 12 hours or so. And if you wanted to sign up for any upcoming sessions, go to wtn.travel. We actually have a session in about 30 minutes. You can still sign up for. It's about the healthiest place on earth. What is according to Mona Rafa from Amman, Jordan. And Mona is a good friend for Rebuilding Travel. She's been on many of our sessions. She's an American Jordanese, and she will be joining us from Jordan in about 30 minutes with the presentation you shouldn't miss. Other than that, tomorrow on Monday night, I believe, or Sunday night, our time, what would be Monday morning, we have a session from Nigeria with a local TV and radio station about community tourism in Africa. And it's going on and on and on. We're really excited to have the second part, as I said, with Louis D'Amour and peaceful tourism on the 29th. And then our highlight event is to say goodbye to COVID on December 30th or 31st with Marisa. She's going to bring tour guides from all over the world together on the show. And we're celebrating, or not celebrating, 100 years, the end of the Spanish flu. And hopefully this will be also the end, kind of the end of COVID and a new beginning for next year. But Apolline, I give you the last word. And from my end, thank you so much. Obrigado.
Thank you. So thank you for all of you to be listening me, to give me more strength to continue and to feel more comfortable with work that is coming, because to the next year it will be hard also. Many people that could afford to be during all this time without working, or enterprises, next year it will be the hard time for most of them. So I hope we can be able to recover soon and to have good ideas to recover. So thank you very much. And you have my contacts from the presentation, or from the World Tourism Network webpage. So there are my contacts. So you can, I think there is also my email and so on. So you can share with me, and if you wanted to go on with this work, or see that you can promote people in your country to come to Portugal, or to have an idea to develop something in your country. So I'm open to all the talks, or just to discuss anything you needed to discuss, or to ask some things. I'm here. So thank you very much. Thank you, Jürgen. It's correct, as I said, Jürgen. Sorry, a while ago I said in the wrong way. So Jürgen, thank you for your great work in creating this Rebuilding Travel, the World Tourism Network. So putting all together all these efforts that I hope will last. And thank you very much for not putting your shoes away and just look to the universe and to the stars and say we cannot stop. The universe is, or the sky is not our limit. We can go to the universe. Thank you very much, and thank you for all of you to be here and to be resilient to this year of 2020. And I hope in 2021 we will be talking just about projects and thinking in the past, and talking when we were in COVID, we were doing this, and nothing, not living still that problem of COVID. Thank you again, and see you soon.
Thank you, Rodriguez. Thank you so much. And I will be in touch with you. Thank you so much, Julian.
Thank you
Thank you
very
so much.
much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
We are here in the Dead Sea, the lowest point on Earth. It contains the salt, the mud, the rate of oxygen, which is healthy for your mind and soul and body. Wow, unbelievable. I've been a guide for a long time. It's the first time for me to see deep sea salt in the salt room, raw like salt in the floor, salt in the wall. After 1 week of exploring Jordan, I had to throw my cell phone away to relax. Well, here you clean your mind, you clean your soul. You know, this life is full of stress. Please, you have to take your stress away. I need this moment for myself.
Aloha and good evening, everyone. My name is Jürgen Steinmetz, and I'm joining you from Livestream.travel and eTurbo News here in Honolulu, Hawaii. Today, we have participants from all over the world. We're celebrating actually the launch of World Tourism Network, what is the continuation of Rebuilding.travel, a discussion group we had since March of this year, right after COVID surprised ITB in Berlin and closed it. We had our first session in ITB because we went to Berlin anyway, and here we are many months later, the end of the year, and we're now ready to structure Rebuilding.travel into an initiative where everyone can have a part of it. We're building global chapters. We want to build this organization from the bottom up. And we have interest groups. And one of the interest groups we have is aviation. And aviation is led by Vijay Ponusamy. He is joining us today, and he's leading actually this discussion tonight. Vijay was a former VP for Etihad Airways. He's probably one of the most knowledgeable people I know in the aviation industry. And he's joining us from Singapore tonight. And it's his discussion, it's his group, and he will introduce himself and his panel. Good evening, Vijay, or good afternoon for you.
Thank you very much, Jürgen. Greetings to everyone, and welcome to WTN's Aviation Group's inaugural panel series entitled Plane Talk, for 60 minutes of candid discussions on the aviation challenges. And today, we will be dealing with COVID-19 and the environment. My name is Vijay Ponusamy, and I invite you to fasten your seatbelts and welcome our panelists. Professor Jeffrey Lippman, President of SunX Malta and former IATA Executive Director, UNWTO Assistant Secretary General, and first WTTC President. Ms. Adefunke Adeyemi, IATA's Regional Director, Advocacy and Strategic Relations, Africa, and Dr. Susan Becken, Professor of Sustainable Tourism at Griffith University in Australia and a member of the Air New Zealand Sustainability Advisory Panel. I will offer some brief opening remarks before interacting with our distinguished panelists and address some of the questions you posed before giving some closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, airlines survived and thrived by being the arteries of an interconnected and thriving world, and by being the wings of booming global tourism and trade. In 2019, travel and tourism contributed, according to WTTC, to $8.9 trillion to global GDP and 330 million jobs worldwide. The airline industry's net profit in 2019 was $26.4 billion, and last December, IATA's 2020 forecast was that the global airline industry will produce a net profit of $29.3 billion and mark its 11th consecutive profitable year. Airlines invested billions in next generation aircraft and technology, in recruiting and training personnel to meet and stimulate an ever increasing demand for air travel. Sky was not the limit, as long-term projections predicted a doubling in air travel over the next 2 decades. Then came COVID-19. WTTC estimates that by the end of this year, more than 174 million travel and tourism jobs will be lost globally, and global GDP would lose more than $4.7 trillion from travel and tourism. Now, governments have so far supported the airlines with $173 billion, but IATA expects airlines to have debts in excess of $651 billion and lost $118.5 billion by the end of this year. Now, air cargo continues to do well because it is driven by need. Air passengers who need to travel, for example, to return home, for medical or family emergencies, for unavoidable business and pilgrimage, will do so as soon as they are able to. However, and this will be perhaps my first challenge to my panelists, even though it is safe to fly when airlines enforce updated health protocols, being on an aircraft is only a part of the journey. And I believe that the ongoing painful human and economic losses, the unpredictability of COVID-19 and its various waves, the risk of being infected or being in contact with someone who is, the tests and quarantines at both ends of a flight, the risk associated with a positive COVID test and treatment in a foreign country, the risk of a lockdown at either ends of a flight, the length of a flight, and the enhanced climate change awareness will impact people's desire and ability to indulge in discretionary air travel. Now, work-related travel will also be impacted for a long time because businesses continue to suffer, budgets everywhere are being slashed, and people, like all of us on this call, are embracing the convenience and new opportunities of the cost-effective virtual tools. It is therefore fair, and this is my first question to Funke, to say that the biggest hurdles in stimulating international air traffic continue to be border closures and quarantines.
Thank you very much, Vijay. It's a pleasure to be here on this inaugural aviation session of the WTN. It's a great question, Vijay, and really goes to the heart of the matter. Before the COVID-19 crisis, aviation carried 4.5 billion people around the world. That's half of the world's population. So in a manner of speaking, you could call aviation a form of mass transportation. It's basically like taking a bus. And then all of a sudden the pandemic came and it really deconnected the world in a way that we haven't seen, I think, since aviation came on stream in commercial quantities. So this really had a significant far-reaching impact in so many different ways. And I think we're now at the point where we're at a crux and at a pivotal point where we need to consider the balance of saving lives and the livelihoods of those lives. And that's really, I think, what is really happening at the moment. And certainly that's at the forefront of the consideration in Africa, led by the African Union and many of the institutions. But to the question specifically, for sure, this issue of border opening, based following on from the border closures resulting from the pandemic is absolutely fundamental. At the crux of this crisis, passenger numbers were down to 96%, meaning that there was hardly any flying going on. The only silver lining was the fact that cargo was moving, particularly moving PPEs and medicines around the world. And that was really important. And we were able to move, I think, about 46,000 tons of those kinds of much needed essential equipment around the world to really help countries fight the pandemic. We were also able to move about 5.4 million people in terms of repatriation, people needing to get back home and to their families, etc., and to their home countries where they live. But beyond that, nothing else was happening. And this really had such a deep impact on GDP and aviation's and travel and tourism's contribution to global GDP. You've given the numbers, but just to highlight to the participants that all of these parameters halved. In fact, in most cases, they went below half. So the contribution of GDP of aviation, particularly of 3.5 million, went down to 1.7 trillion, went down to 1.7 trillion. The impact in terms of the losses on jobs, 46 million. So reopening borders is absolutely critical. Now we understand the concerns from a public health perspective of governments in terms of confidence to reopen their borders, to ensure that aviation is not a vector to create or lead to the transmission of COVID-19 across international borders, as well as the issue of passenger confidence. As you said, people really think twice now about whether to take a trip. But here's the thing. Since this COVID-19, aviation, as is typical for our industry, have been quite proactive in looking at how best we can address this issue of confidence and to really take responsibility to make sure that the industry is not a spreader, a super spreader of this disease. The first things that we did were we started to proactively look at how we could assess the end-to-end journey of a passenger and their cargo and how to make sure that that journey was as safe as possible. And we looked at everything from the pre-flight, even from before you left your house. So how could you mitigate, contact with unnecessary contact from that process all the way to when you get either through transit or when you arrive at your destination to borders and customs. That's the first thing. So we looked at this sort of biosecurity measures, which was a layered approach, and really looked at, to ensure physical distancing, to ensure, the right public health safety precautions were being taken, and to ensure that all of the touch points along the passenger journey were addressing the issues they needed to properly. The second issue, and this was all done, as IATA guidance, but also under the umbrella of ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization that really worked with all of the industry to come up with these measures. The second thing was that we also looked inward. That process of getting on the flight, what happens to a passenger in flight? And we worked with the aircraft manufacturers. We worked with, some research institutions, universities, and so on, really looking at what happens here, and discovered something quite interesting, that the cabin environment of an aircraft is actually safer than most enclosed spaces, even safer than a theater where someone is having open heart surgery. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that it's a total zero risk environment, but that's not the point of getting people moving left and right. There's no zero risk with COVID until an effective vaccine has been proven to work. There's no zero risk, but the point is to mitigate the risk as much as possible. So we looked at that element. And then the third was, we said, how can we use a risk-based approach to ensure that governments can open their borders to each other? So opening up travel corridors and opening up travel bubbles, looking at the risk of each country. So in a sense, if there's already community spread, and we know already from the research we've done that the risk of transmission from international travel, especially if the travel process is a safe process, then you can open your borders internationally. But we're seeing governments, a lot of governments are trying to take a zero risk approach, which is not helpful. So I just want to wrap up now with a few key points. We believe that testing, systematic testing prior to departure is a great alternative to imposing quarantines or maintaining border closures. And the reason is that testing has been proven to at least showcase what are the who are the people who can go into the different streams. Whether you are positive, if you test positive before departure, you just don't get on that plane. So you mitigate the risk of being a spreader through that journey. If you don't, then you're home free. You go to your destination without the need to be quarantined because you've gone through this process within that safe environment. Not just using the testing, but also the multi-layered approach we're talking about. And so it's absolutely fundamental that we're able to reopen borders on this basis. Some of the borders that have critical mass in the world in terms of aviation travel, North America, Europe, and to some extent Asia, have not yet opened their borders because of trying to take the zero risk approach. But there really is no zero risk, as I mentioned. COVID is still here. And while we have good news about the vaccine, it's really important for us to have this. It's a momentous time in our history, but it's going to take about 12 to 14 months until we see the efficacy. And of course, until we get global distribution to many destinations. And so in the meantime, testing is important and it's critical as a means to open borders. And we'd like to encourage and urge governments to really embrace this approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Funke. Very, very clear, very articulate, very compelling arguments you're making there. And let's try to debate them now. Jeffrey, you want to respond, comment, address any of the points which Funke so ably articulated just now? And I'll ask Susan to do the same in a minute. Jeffrey, if you unmute yourself, that would.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Vijay, and thank you, Funke. I felt the arguments that Funke made were, and she made them very, very clearly and very, very well, were the arguments that I might have made myself if I were working for IATA once more. What Funke didn't deal with, and I think many of us involved in the industry who want to be positive about the future and want to advocate our position, we tend to gloss over some fundaments which come before the question. COVID-19 kills people. It doesn't just affect GDP. It could kill any one of us on this call. The opening and closure of borders is one of a mechanism that governments have put into place to deal with a global pandemic, a public health crisis in every country. And I'm not any expert on this, but we know, and you touched on it yourself, Vijay, this is a highly infectious virus. I sat on the UN interagency committee when I was in the UNWTO, when we dealt with avian flu. And all the agencies had a nominated contact point, and I was the contact point for UNWTO. And this has made me understand a little bit how complicated it is to get control of a new virus, and one where the medical profession, the best medical people in the world, the best, are actually uncertain as to how the virus will be contained and how it might mutate and how it might pass. And in those circumstances, as human beings, not as aviation or tourism advocates, we have to believe, I think, that precaution is the best course of action. And if precaution involves closing borders, because as you yourself said, Vijay, our industry is a vector for this disease. We are a potential super spreader. And yes, the interior of an aircraft may be very, very sterile. I think I prefer to have open heart surgery in a hospital myself, Funky, than on a 747 somewhere. But that being on one side, I think we have to step out of our skins as a first point. And we have to say that whatever governments do in order to control and stop this virus from spreading, including testing, including contact tracing, including a safe and well distributed and scaled vaccine, assume 2 years for that to get out around the world, whatever they do, as a sector, we have to simply go along with it. Yes, we'd like it to be nice bubbles, nice corridors, safe transit through airports. It's going to take some time to put all that in place. And in the meantime, the virus is doing things which the medical people are only learning about as it does things. So I don't want to sort of go on with a prepared speech. I think we have to do what the health authorities tell us, and we have to hunker down and accept that for the next 2 to 3 years, it's like having a conversation at the beginning of the 1939-1945 war and getting some people together who say, it's going to be great when we can go out again in the evenings and go to restaurants and not go into bunkers because the bombs are dropping. At this moment, we are in 1940, and there's another 4 or 5 years of that war, and people didn't like it, and GDP dropped, and jobs dropped, and industry sectors like aviation had to readjust and go back into a sort of basic operation and do all those things that Funky talked about, work with ICAO, plan mechanisms for safe passage, make sure that all the messaging is right. But the point is, the virus is the issue. We have to control it. Otherwise, you, Vijay, or Funky, or me, could be dead because we go to the wrong place at the wrong time.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Susan, you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, I might. I mean, it's a great discussion, and I'm just sort of sitting here wondering. I mean, it depends on the perspective you take and what we're trying to save. Is it the aviation industry? Is it lives? Is it countries' economies? Is it a long-term future for travel? So it depends a little bit. And I might just briefly share a few thoughts from New Zealand, because we are probably one of those countries. I mean, we've locked the borders, and so has Australia. And you mentioned earlier, Vijay, this idea of discretionary air travel. And what I find really interesting, and in fact, the whole country here has established a Tourism Futures Task Force, and Air New Zealand is involved in the discussions that really looks at what's the future we want. The question then is, we had a lot of problems before COVID, over tourism. There's now modeling being done to see was this actually the right level for the size of the country, because we didn't have enough workforce to serve tourists, etc. So we've been closed since March. Consumer expenditure has actually gone up since then. It has more than compensated the loss of international travelers, and that's the interesting thing. The question is, how many people, and that's how you started, Richard, how many people see international travel as essential from now on? People are reconnecting with the country. People are interestingly actually investing into holiday homes, which I think that's an interesting long-term trend, because you don't just buy a holiday home and then you sell it again. So people are almost shifting their mindset towards a little bit closer to home travel, and the same happens in Australia. So once the economy is open again, I will be interested to see how much traffic will there be across the Tasman Sea, which is obviously, it's a really busy corridor, lots of competition, but how many people will have essential travel? And there's lots of them, and you see it, we had a few flights going out. No matter what it costs, but how much discretionary travel is there that will be not happening for all the reasons that you said, plus people have shifted their behaviors. And I think that's what the airlines might have to grapple with, that there will be a contraction in demand, because people might have changed their views on what's actually really important travel and what's not. And there's implications, and they are not always bad for the economies that are concerned. There will be some that I think will be missing out. But not all countries will necessarily be negatively affected.
Thank you, Susan. Funke, you've basically heard two very interesting perspectives and concerns going forward.
Yes.
Can I ask you to maybe respond or give us your honest reaction to these concerns?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll start with what Susan just said. You know, this idea that consumer behavior really will impact what the recovery for our industry will look like, whether for aviation alone or for the wider travel and tourism, as well as what countries are doing from taking into account the learnings that they have seen as a result of the COVID-19. So that's a very valid point. And in fact, we're forecasting that for the aviation industry, we won't see a meaningful or proper recovery to 2019 levels until, as late as 2024. So that's really something that's definitely going to impact and contract demand over the short term, over the next sort of 3-year horizon. Now, to what Prof. Jeffrey said, absolutely right. I mean, this is not something that we take lightly at all. The coronavirus is killing people, and the industry is being responsible with this very, very real reality facing us in terms of what we're doing. And that's why we are working not just with ICAO, but with the WHO. We've worked hand in hand with them on a joint task force to really see how we can address these concerns. So it's not a question of, one side against the other. It's a question of really taking a collaborative approach to address certain issues. And the WHO has said, while you're right that the way that the behavior of the virus is still evolving, and medical science is still learning about its behaviors and how it transmits, its mutations, etc. The WHO is also being clear-minded about certain issues. For example, the WHO does not recommend quarantine. And that's a very interesting point. So, we have the extreme of border closures. And of course, these are decisions that are also not taken lightly by governments, because they also understand the impact. But then you have, where travel is permitted, people are still being quarantined, even though they have proof that they have taken a negative, they've tested negative to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so it is also a disincentive to those who will travel. They won't travel. We've done a survey, on passengers. Will you travel if you're tested? 88% say yes. Will you travel if you're likely to be quarantined on the other side? As high as 80% say no. So a quarantine, if you've been tested, is another disincentive to travel. And that's the area that we're really trying to address here, that if you are open, first of all, you can open if you really look at the risk and calculate it based on what you think is best for your people and your country, then open up based on testing, contact tracing, and so on, and all of the other multi-layered measures. And if you do open up and you do test before departure, then don't quarantine on the other side, because you just simply will not get the people coming. Unless I'm going home, I'm not going to go to any place where I have to isolate or quarantine for 7 days or 14 days. There just simply would be no reason to. So that's really what we're trying to address here. And we're also trying to use, not just to ensure that there is a trusted framework that is really the forefront of the center of this issue. One of the reasons why governments are closing their borders to other countries is, well, you know, there is a trust issue, and we've got to be frank here. Do we trust the tests that are coming from country X? Do we trust the results that are coming from country Y? But if you have a trust that has been used by governments over the years, then that could be a meaningful way of addressing these particular issues. Now, the final point, just to wrap up, again, speaking to the point that was made by the Prof, by Jeffrey, is that the balance, my personal view, and I guess our view in IATA and across a large part of the industry, is that striking and saving lives and saving livelihoods is really a way forward. And I want to use the African example. I mentioned earlier that African Union is taking this approach, saving lives and livelihoods. And we're working together again with WHO, with the African CDC, and the wider industry, ICAO, IATA, you know, UNWTO, and so on. So it's a real stakeholder coalition that's looking at this issue and saying, look, many of our countries are dying off. You know, economically, people just simply cannot sustain themselves. Yes, it's true. The virus is there, and it is even, you know, it's really a big risk for people. But so far, we haven't seen the, you know, high numbers that we've seen in other regions happening in many parts of Africa. Again, there's a debate about whether we're testing enough and so on. But there really is a real concern that if we're not able to reopen borders, that we really will create, you know, other challenges that might be even as grave as the COVID in themselves. For example, poverty and people actually dying out of hunger. So yeah, I think I'll pause there. Thanks.
Thanks, Funke. If I were to press you, see, the issue, and I think the underlying message from both Jeffrey and Suzanne were about the need to understand governments' need to protect, if you want, their communities, and testing, as you point out, is one of the ways you recommend before people travel in. But if you look at then your rejection of quarantines, I was intrigued. On 2nd of December, IATA issued a press release which basically called on Europeans and UK governments to immediately abolish passenger quarantines on the basis of an EASA and European Centre of Disease Prevention and Control rejection of transmission of using quarantines. But it was only in the context where transmission of the virus is already widespread. It's not a kind of a fitting all the scenarios. But if you look at, I'm based in Singapore, like yesterday, Singapore had 0 locally transmitted cases, but it had 12 imported cases, 2 of whom were symptomatic, 10 were asymptomatic. And all those 12 were placed in isolation upon arrival. So you can imagine why and how governments are concerned and using, in a way, these protections of isolation and quarantines to try to protect their population from further infection. And I think the other question you posed just now, and I think an interesting one, is a very interesting, almost moral impact and infection impact. so to speak. It's whether you protect wealth or well-being, jobs or health. And in that, I'm going to quote you something which yes, because see, in the context of today, especially we're dealing with the pandemic, and even more so in the new normal, where skepticism is at its height, I think trust, you must agree, Funke, is a key to building confidence, and that public and private international organizations involved in travel and tourism must demonstrate their trustworthiness and not their vested interests. Now, I'll give you a quote, actually 2 quotes from the UNWTO Secretary General. Quote, "Finding the right balance between public health concerns and supporting a sector upon which millions of people depend," end of quote. And a further statement, and I quote, that governments have a duty to put the health of their citizens first. However, they also have the responsibility to protect businesses and livelihoods. For too long and in too many places, the emphasis has overly focused on the former, and we are now paying the price, end of quote. How do you react to this kind of statements, Jeffrey?
Well, I'm really glad you reframed the question and put it in those terms. I hadn't seen Zurab's quote, but I think it is indicative and understandable of a mindset which is there to support the sector. And that's just a good thing and a necessary thing. But in my view, and maybe it's because I'm one step removed at the moment, I come down on the side of the precautionary approach. If you assume that your alternatives between health and the economy, to put it in those terms, is in a line, I have a start which is very close to the health position. Make sure that people are not going to die, and even more so, that people are not going to inadvertently kill other people because they're carrying the disease in ways that, you know, you said it's asymptomatic. You don't know that you're carrying it, but you've got it and you've been tested, but the test doesn't show for a certain while. Governments have to primarily protect against that. That's their responsibility. Yes, they have to be concerned about sectors of the economy, every sector, but the principal concern for most governments is the health of their citizens. Quarantines, which is where you started this discussion, is a blunt instrument, but it's something that governments can do quickly, and it demonstrates also to the citizens the seriousness of the situation. So I'm not surprised when governments put quarantines in. I'm not surprised when industry bodies ask for quarantines to be eliminated. And I don't think it's a question of getting the right balance. I think you have to keep moving this needle away from the health only from a precautionary view when you're certain that the actions of any sector are not going to make the health situation worse. And you said that a key to the position, you shifted into the position of the trust of the organizations. I think there's another element in all of this, and it's the trust of the public, of the system. When Funke said we had all these alphabet organizations together, so we had all the stakeholders, but you didn't. You had the group of stakeholders who are directly interested. You did not have consumer or NGO or any of those people who might have raised the difficult question. You had people who all wanted the same thing. And I've been part of the organization of that in IATA, very much in IATA. The whole IATA-ICAO relationship was built up in my days. I was responsible for that development. So I understand it. But in this current situation, and particularly when you can turn on your computer or your television set and you can see what's happening everywhere, I think you have to go beyond what you've defined as trust. I think people are looking for three things. I jotted them down. The first and overriding thing is safety. That's the most important. And I think in those circumstances, whether you're quarantining or whether you're having corridors or bubbles, safety has to be paramount. The second thing is, and here is a big issue that's coming up, is simplicity. If you have to travel between 3 countries and you need 3 different health certificates, and they can change the conditions whilst you're on your journey, that's going to drive people bonkers. And the last one is certainty. You don't want to be in a situation where you travel to another country and maybe you don't have quarantine when you get to that country. You find that when you go home, you have to have quarantine at home. So I think, you know, I don't have a magic solution to what I've just defined. I think, but we didn't have a magic solution in 1940 to another 5 years of war. We're in for a tough time whilst we're juggling all these dynamics around and getting it to work, a bit like trying to get the multilateral system together, Funky, in IATA, when you're dealing with dozens of bilaterals. This is going to be a complex situation. And yes, hopefully the vaccine will make a big difference. But we also have to take the hype out of the vaccine, the Donald Trump bullshit out of the vaccine. we getting the vaccine to a situation where all of the population who might travel have had some sort of certainty in their control of the infection. That's going to take quite a long time. And I think the industry is going to be, you know, except for those people who are carrying the vaccine around, FedEx and UPS, if they're your members, Funky, they're going to do okay next year.
Okay, thanks, Jeffrey. Funke, can I ask you to make maybe a quick 1 or 2 minute takeaways from this discussion, and then we'll move straight into the environmental section of our discussion. Please go ahead.
Sure. I mean, this is a very interesting debate, and I think it's one that can be polarizing, but also I think that if it's addressed in a holistic manner, really can bring a lot of issues together. I think the one thing I want to say is that while we're having this discussion, I'd like us to just put on the table that it's not either or. You know, all of these things we're saying, it should not be binary. And we're at the moment, I feel like we're having quite binary positions on these issues. The situation is that for every country, for every region, things are different. I've mentioned to you already in Africa that Corona is killing less people than hunger is. That's something that is a reality on a day-to-day basis for millions of the 1.3 billion people in Africa. So this is something that governments are looking at and really considering and addressing how best to look at the situation. I think, you know, Jeffrey made a point about risk assessment, and I think that's really where I want to end my comments on this. If we're having a zero risk conversation, I understand totally. Keep borders closed, keep everyone at home, and you know, let's just make sure that, you know, even one person doesn't get Corona. Totally understood. And it's a very hard decision for governments to make. The people who are making these decisions is very, very hard. In my country, I'm close to the presidential task force that's working on this. It's literally a balancing, very, very delicate balancing act that they go through every week. What is the status? What can we do? Can we increase the number of flights in? Can we increase the number of passengers in? Yes, we can here. No, we cannot there. That's really literally how it is on almost a daily, weekly basis. However, this conversation cannot be a zero risk conversation, because there is no zero risk with corona until we have proven the efficacy of the vaccine. I'm sure many of us on the call took vaccines as young children. I remember taking, as a young child, the yellow fever vaccine. Until today, I can travel to many countries in Africa with my yellow fever card that's renewed on a regular basis because I have been vaccinated. That makes it easy for me to go to travel around because I am immune to that particular disease. Today, there's no immunity against coronavirus. We haven't yet tested the efficacy. And so with that in mind, and that only, there is no zero risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Funke. And I think we all agree here. I think no government and nobody on this panel also is advocating a zero risk approach, whether dealing with airline aviation security, safety, or COVID management. I think it's all a question of whether the risks are sufficiently and adequately mitigated in the light of the known science and the known spread of a fast changing virus. And I think definitely we do not envy governments who have to make those tough decisions moving forward in terms of how do they best protect their population against unwanted risks going forward. But let me now turn to the environment in the 15, 20 minutes we have left. Now, before COVID, we all know aviation was one of the fastest growing sources of greenhouse gas emissions. The EU even noting that if global aviation was a country, it would rank in the top 10 for greenhouse gas emissions. Now, with COVID and the mass grounding of aircraft, CO2 emissions from aviation reduced, according to Global Carbon Project, by up to 60%. Now, at the IATA AGM last month, airlines reiterated the industry's commitment to carbon neutral growth from the start of 2021, with ICAO's carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation, CORSIA, to cut net emissions to half 2005 levels by 2050, and to explore pathways to zero net emissions by 2060-65. Now, IATA adopted CORSIA in 2016 to complement a broader basket of measures to achieve global aspirational goal of carbon neutral growth from 2020 onwards. Now, interesting to note that the participation of CORSIA, of course, is voluntary in the pilot and the first phase, which is from 2021 to 2026, whilst the second phase from 2027 to 2035 applies to all member states except the exempted ones. The exempted ones are either states whose individual share of international aviation activities in RTKs, revenue ton kilometers, in year 2018 is below 0.5% of total RTKs, and states that are not part of the list of states that account for 90% of total RTKs when sorted from the highest to the lowest amount of individual RTKs. Also excluded are least developed countries, small island developing states, landlocked developing countries, regardless of their share of aviation RTKs. Now, airlines were to use international flight emissions for 2019 and 2020 to create the baseline to show the excesses which would be offset as from 2021 to achieve this carbon neutral growth. But in July, ICAO decided to remove the unexpectedly low 2020 figures and rely solely on the much higher 2019 emissions data. Now, many green aviation groups have criticized offsetting as a means for companies to shirk their environmental responsibilities, essentially paying their way to continue business as usual and avoid any meaningful action on net emissions reductions. Greenpeace said, and I quote, "This whole strategy is a flight of fancy. Carbon offsetting is simply an excuse to carry on with business as usual, whilst shifting the responsibility to cut emissions to someone else, somewhere else, and some other time. It's greenwash, pure and simple, and ministers should be wary of lending it any credibility," end of quote. Susan, will the pre-COVID CORSIA and the aviation sector, and here not talking only about the airlines, the whole aviation sector, manufacturers, fuel suppliers, airlines, be able to withstand the enhanced environmental challenges?
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. And look, I mean, the good thing about CORSIA was that it did bring all the airlines or countries to the table to say, okay, we've got to address climate change as an industry. So that's a good one. On the other hand, I mean, it's not just Greenpeace, but just last week, the Unep emission gap report came out and quite clearly stating that essentially the same point that you just read from Greenpeace, that CORSIA is completely inadequate. It does not lead to any reductions. And so in some ways, and you want a candid discussion here, I think it's probably dead before it starts. And I think what the progressive airlines are doing, and there's quite a group of them, they are really starting to push much harder on the real decarbonization of the industry. And so the World Resource Institute will bring out a science-based target approach for airlines that will come out in February. And that will provide a clear pathway for airlines to reduce emissions, essentially not net, but zero by 2050, because the net is an accounting construct. You can only have a net if someone else says your credit. If everyone else has reduced, there's no credits left to buy. So there's only zero at that point. So I think some airlines are pushing ahead. Some countries are co-investing, like some Scandinavian countries who work with the airlines. And I think that will in some way supersede CORSIA. And there might remain a voluntary carbon offsetting market, which is great. Great for those people who feel they want to make a donation and contribution. I can see that continue alongside some of the other sort of fastening pace.
Thank you very much. Funke?
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. I think it's a great point that I've just heard, you know, in terms of the initiatives that are taking place and this, you know, working towards science-based metrics for the airlines in terms of CO2 reduction. I just wanted to remind us, though, of what the aviation sector set out to do back in 2007 and what it's all premised upon. First of all, it was a proactive target setting, very ambitious target setting done by the aviation industry, and in 2007, when, you know, there was really a lot of attention on the aviation's impact on carbon emissions, on greenhouse gases. And of course, when this whole debate began, we stepped up to the table and said, look, we've got to do something. We've got to take responsibility. Never mind that we were, you know, not maybe the highest on the list of emitters, but it didn't matter. We took responsibility. So what I want to remind us of is that there's 4 or 5 pillars that we're working towards. The CORSIA is the market-based measure that is supposed to be a way of, you know, closing the gap outside of, you know, all of the giant strides that have already been made with technology, with operations, more efficient operations, with infrastructure, with sustainable aviation fuels in some cases, and so on. So there's already been quite a lot of progress that has been made. For example, fuel efficiency, one of the targets that you articulated earlier, we had set ourselves to, you know, a target of 1.5%, and we're already doing much better than that as an industry. I think we're about 2.3% at the moment. Similarly, on technology, the aircraft manufacturers, all of the suppliers, everyone stepping up to the table and really making their own inroads and their own contribution, using different kinds of materials for, you know, manufacturing. Is not just about the engines, you know, it's also what comes with an aircraft. How is an aircraft operated, the systems, how much paper do you put on it, you know, how do you change what you use for serving the food. So many things, and not just the airlines themselves, but the whole ecosystem, green airports, waste management, and so on. So this is what, just a reminder that we started with this global market-based measure that evolved into CORSIA. And the importance of CORSIA is that it is a global measure so that we can avoid a multiplicity of regional schemes, which will, create quite a lot of chaos, confusion in some cases, and distort the market. And that's the reason why, under the umbrella of ICAO, the market-based measure came up. Now, of course, I understand that some regions are far advanced and really are quite active and proactive even in terms of addressing this critical issue, and are making a lot of great strides, like Europe, and that is to be commended. I believe that we are all working together to try to achieve the same goals, and I think that's really how we need to continue to think about this issue. Just a final point on what's been happening since the COVID hit. We've seen, we've had to address quite a number of concerns. One is that, even with the COVID, we maintain our focus, our laser focus on addressing our environmental challenges, and it is one of our three priorities for 2021. So environment is one of our three major priorities, so we maintain that. Two, we understand that it is something that is still forefront in the mind of the public. Going to something that Jeffrey had mentioned before, when we're talking about COVID, the public perception is still very important on this issue. It's not just the perception, but the fact that they see that we are doing a lot about this, and not just paying lip service to the issue. And the third is that some of the things that have arisen as a result of the COVID, for example, cabin waste from masks and other PPEs that are having to be worn, how we're managing that, single-use plastics on flights, and so on. And the final point is that our key focus in terms of the pathway to achieving the zero net emissions that was mentioned by Susan by 2050 is really to aggressively target initiatives and really to move the needle on sustainable aviation fuel and on technology, particularly radical technologies. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Funke. Jeffrey, can I ask you to respond or share your thoughts, but actually try to do it in 3 minutes?
Wow. Yes, a very quick one. First of all, when I was in IATA and responsible for amongst other things, for the regional activities, I wish I had Funke there working for me, because you make a very good case. The challenge, and I think I don't want to appear to be too adversarial, because I'm a big fan of IATA, big fan of the aviation system, but the ambition is Neanderthal. I repeat, Neanderthal. In 2005, Giovanni Bisignani created an advocacy system of 4 pillars. And they're the things you referred to, of which market-based mechanisms, technology, and they were very well defined. They were based on a work that Kevin Dobby did with McKinsey before that, just to talk about all of this. It was a strategy. And the strategy was, let's get out there ahead of the game. Let's get an ambition which is accepted by the whole of the group. And let's put that into the international framework, which is our protection, which is ICAO. And then you put somebody on every ICAO delegation, and then ICAO comes out with its own solution. Vijay, you were the chairman of the first big ICAO air transport conference. And I was working with IATA doing exactly that. And IATA did this magnificently in the case of environment. They created ATAG, and ATAG produces brilliant papers, again, pulls all of the community together, puts out very good studies. But whilst IATA has been advocating for 10 years for an ambition which is half of 2005 pollution levels by 2050, the rest of the world's moved on. Whilst IATA has been working in ICAO outside of the Paris Agreement framework, President Xi of China says we're going to be zero carbon by 2060. The European Union says we're going to cut our emissions by 55% by 2030. And I think what's necessary now is for IATA, and it has a new director general, be a great thing for him to do, to come in and say, we've upped our ambitions. Airbus have announced that in 2035, they will be producing 3 variants of a no carbon aircraft. And sure as hell, between now and 2035, you can be sure that Boeing and Embraer and everybody else will be coming out with their variants of the same thing. So my message in this last 3 minutes, it's one, Vijay, I gave to the Arab Air Carriers President's Assembly in 2015 when I gave an address to them, and in the ICAO address that I gave, the Qatar lecture that I gave last year. The airline should get on board with the rest of the international community and declare a 2050 zero carbon ambition. And yes, we know the challenges of sustainable aviation fuel. We know the challenges of being able to operate in many, many different regimes, but have a valid ambition and then work towards it. It changes the dynamics and it changes the mindset.
Thank you very much, Jeffrey. I think it's a very interesting note, but I think my takeaway from this discussion here is that we really, the aviation sector needs to update its climate commitments because what was agreed to before COVID must be aligned to this new normal and recognize that there are increasing calls out there to move beyond net zero to even to regenerate. So the world is moving on, and I would agree with Jeffrey there that actually, as friends of the aviation sector, we would wish that sector to actually revisit its commitments and effectively try to align it with the new expectations out there. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I promise you a 1-hour discussion. I hope you had the benefits of all these incredible insights of people who are very passionate about our sector, who are very articulate, very enthusiastic, and I know you would want to continue engaging with them, and we wish them well as they actually take these ideas across. And I would like, on your behalf, to thank Funke, Suzanne, and Jeffrey, and all of you for having joined in. The key message I would like to leave you with is that the travel and tourism stakeholders cannot and must not act recklessly in this COVID world, or simply wait and hope for a return to the pre-COVID world. We must wake up to the fact that the new normal requires new mindsets to find new solutions. Beyond innovation and digitalization, there's an ever-growing need to create a safe, secure, and more socially, environmentally, and economically sustainable travel and tourism model, which is driven by values. Nobody knows how all this will play out, but we must all do our trustworthy best to rebuild confidence in the safety, security, predictability, and positive community value of travel and tourism. Thank you very much, and over to you, Jeffrey. Jürgen.
You mean Thomas, don't you? Yeah.
It doesn't. Thank you very much, guys. So this was absolutely excellent, and I really wanted to thank all of you for participating, especially Vijay, who has been working on it hard. And I'm looking forward to working with you, Vijay, and the Aviation Interest Group more. We're ready, and I think our members and our supporters and our viewers are very interested in being part of it, and at least to follow the development.